Welcome back to the Placeholder Podcast, everybody. Caley Fretz. It's TDU this week, but we're bringing you a whole bunch of other stuff because, well, we've got the Escape Down Under podcast showing up all week. Matt Deneef and Rupert Guinness and Ronan McLaughlin, they're all chatting down in Adelaide, but we've got plenty of other news to chat about. Joining me today, Dane Cash, welcome. Sorry your heat's broken.
Hey, Caley. It's very cold here. It was already cold, and the fact that I don't have heat makes it colder.
Got a nice warm hat on. Jonny Long is back in his house cave.
Yes, looking at Dane Cash, he looks like he's about to launch an Eminem tribute act. Very 8 Mile Dane.
It took me a second, but yeah, I've got a
gloves on.
I got a beanie on. I get it now. It took me a second to understand what you were saying.
You've just talked with your hands, gloves. So I've seen your gloves for the first time.
Nice leather gloves. Yeah,
it is real cold there apparently.
Yeah.
And back on Placeholders, Abby Mickey, welcome back.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Good to have you. All right, let's get into today's show. Top of our list today is it's tough to say whether it's a story or a rumor or reporting or what, because frankly, the genesis of this particular storyline as of recording is quite unclear. Johnny, what is going on with Wout van Aert, Remco Evenepoel, and Bora Hansgrohe and Red Bull? What's happening?
The rumor is that Bora Hansgrohe, Red Bull want to sign Wout van Aert and Remco Evenepoel at some point, maybe as soon as they'll figure it out for next year, and there'll be more big buyouts and money just being transferred all the time between Visma Lease Bike and Bora Hansgrohe. But both Belgian riders have contracts through 2026, I want to say. So it's confusing in terms of what a contract actually means anymore. It's also confusing because this news report came from the DPA agency, which is like a news agency in Germany, like Reuters or what's the other one, PA, where basically it's just like Newswire. That's like proper at the coalface journalists where they go knock on doors and ask real questions. Trustworthy source, but there's no sort of online link or article that we can see. Everyone's just taken it from another German website called Kicker, which I'd read for the first time today. So whether or not this is true, everyone's run with it. I think we're going to run with it in some way, maybe less straight. But yeah, it looks like maybe there is at least a rumor that Evenepoel and Van Aert are going to go join Primoz Roglic, Jai Hindley and the gang.
Which would be crazy. Let's just be clear, right? But also, there is precedent for this, though.
Well, yeah, I just think that with like Johnny said, what does a contract even mean anymore? Well, first of all, it means less apparently to Jumbo than to most. They tend to just sort of ignore the validity of certain contracts. And then, yeah, as you're saying, I mean, Bora has already kind of done this. The big difference, though, I think Jumbo wanted to get rid of Primoz Roglic.
They probably don't want to get rid of Wout van Aert.
I don't think they want to get rid of Wout van Aert. That makes this a little bit more, a little spicier.
Are we trending in the direction of a market that's sort of closer to like European football soccer, where
I hope so.
Athletes get bought and sold,
so, yeah.
And like in football, they try to get rid of players before the end of their contract because that's when they have value, right? Whereas in cycling at the moment, you know, your contract is up and then you switch teams, and so you don't actually have any value to the team that you're coming from. It's pretty rare that there is a sort of transfer fee involved. There's a couple instances, obviously, the Roglic case. There's been a couple that sort of came up through like Gianni Savio's Italian squad, like Colombian guys, Ivan Sosa, for example, getting picked up by Ineos for quite a healthy sum. But it is relatively rare. And in other sports, it's really common. And in fact, it's often viewed if you've let an athlete get all the way down to the end of their contract, you've kind of failed as a team. Are we trending in that direction? Is this just like the very beginnings of that? Or is this just a kind of weird one-off because Bora's suddenly got like Red Bull money?
The thing is, if it does end up like that, it will be still quite uneven, I presume, because there's still going to be slanted much more in favour of the big teams. Because the way it works, the reason why the Premier League, it kind of works a bit, even though there is like the huge teams, but everyone gets a decent slice of the TV money, so everyone can buy at least a few good players. The one thing that also works is that, how you say, you don't let the contract run down. So all of the footballers sign like 4 or 5 year deals, which gives them security, you know. And then what will then happen is if it looks like the player's not going to like sign a new contract with a year to go, you then shop them around. So then what it would give is lots of teams a chance to jump ahead of the queue, do a deal, And then I think usually the athlete has to agree, but it's not like a lot of American sports where you just suddenly are shipped off to like Minnesota from Florida or whatever. So you have to get some buy-in. So it seems a healthier way to do it, where it's like, do you want to go to Groupama FDG? Yes. Okay, great. You're gone. And then the team banks some money. So then you get some return on your investment, maybe. Seems to work for everyone.
That's like a bargaining chip in a lot of American sports where you get a no trade clause into your contract. So you can say, once you're good enough, once you're valuable enough, you can say, okay, part of this contract means I get to have some say in where I go.
Okay.
I don't want to go to Minnesota. It's cold there. But everybody else does not have, the normal people, the less talented folks might not get that in their contract.
Okay.
So yeah, it definitely is. It can be pretty rough. I mean, going from I think that's with cycling, it makes it kind of tricky because it is an individual sport contested in teams. That's what people often say about it. I think it's extra weird when you add that element in. You still have the one person winning the race. And then to have that person just shopped around with to some team they didn't sign with, that makes it even weirder.
I feel like along those lines, that this is only something that we're going to see with big stars. We're not going to see like younger riders that maybe have potential, but we don't really know yet. Like, we're not going to see them being bought out for tons of money, or like domestiques even, like unless you're, one of the really coveted domestiques. The teams are made up of a ton of guys that are kind of just guys out there doing their job. They're incredible, but they're not like the Remcos or the Wouts, and those guys are going to not find themselves in this position. And I think for them, it would be more likely that they're just traded to a team if we were trending that direction, that they didn't get a say in that. Yeah, or we're going to have some kind of split situation going on.
I guess one way it could work is that you have Remco and then his Gregarios or preferred mountain domestiques, and they get sold as like a package deal or something. So then at least there's some semblance there, and but that's also confusing. Something definitely needs to change, right? Because at the minute it's just sort of like clandestine meetings in like hotels at the classics between these faceless agents who then decide what's going to happen way ahead of time, kind of hold teams' feet to the fire, maybe like plant a story in the press, and it all gets worked out. It all gets worked out as like things normally would, I guess, if there was a real system and structure. But why not just have that and start putting the money where it can be seen? I don't know.
It might not be an ideal kind of the whole behind the scenes stuff, but like it's fun, and that everybody wins.
Transfers are great
when we're having fun in this big entertainment industry we call sports. And so I read this story, which may or may not be real, and I think awesome. Great. And I mean, the whole other element of it is like Red Bull has money, and that money is coming into cycling. That's also good. So I see this as a positive.
So I was chatting with an agent not that long ago, about 4 weeks ago. This has just occurred to me that he mentioned kind of offhand. He was specifically talking about, this is not Remco Evenepoel's agent, but he was talking about Remco, and Remco's his contract is to 2026, right? And it was quite a long contract, and the contracts are getting longer and longer. That is sort of a prerequisite for what we're talking about, because if the contracts are 1 year or 2 years, there's no time to sell anybody. They have no value to be sold on. Whereas if the contract is 4 years or 5 years or 6 years, which now we're seeing that particularly with big name riders, then there is time to do exactly what you said, Jonny, which is to have that rider for 4 years. They get a year or two away from the end of their contract. Then they start shopping them around. They try to get, like a team tries to get some cash out. The other thing and the reason I mentioned this is what this agent said, is that agents are starting to push riders and teams in this direction, because guess who makes money when you sell a rider? Agents.
Oh yeah.
So a lot of money. Whenever you have these transactions, the riders are coming out ahead often. The teams are not always coming out ahead. Depends on what exactly is happening. But who always wins? The agents. And they're pulling a lot of the strings behind the scenes here. And the guy I was talking to, I'm gonna leave unnamed, because this wasn't like an on the record. This wasn't an interview. It was a chat. But he definitely mentioned that these longer contracts and these various things that basically agents are looking at other sports and being like, wow, this dude's a 100 millionaire, and I'm over here working through contracts for 100K. How do we fix this? Agents are paying attention to it. So that's why I asked the original question, is because it was a bit of a leading question. I do think that there's some forces at play that are going to try to push things in that direction, particularly for the biggest names. That's my little prediction, maybe for not necessarily for 2024, but just sort of as we move into the next couple years here and this sport starts to change.
We should get the opinion of the person who loves cycling transfers the most in the entire world, GCN's Dan Benson, who I've been told secondhand that he once said that transfer and transfer gossip is the future of like the cycling media ecosystem. So maybe he knew that this was coming and that it would become a more official thing. But I do like how he's tried to jumpstart that by styling himself as like Cycling's Fabrizio Romano with the alarms on Twitter. And it's like, it's good. Like you have like 5 tweet threads of like where such and such a person is going. It's fun. Like there are some like smoke and mirrors and like, will they, won't they? Like it's,
You got it. Yeah. I have to admit that it never really struck me as a particularly interesting thing, but it has started to be a lot more interesting in the last 18 months. And I think Benson's onto something. He gets a lot of the good rumors. He's a very good reporter. I find with those types of stories, you always have to be very careful because generally if someone's giving you information as a reporter, they are doing so for a reason. I think Benson's pretty good at parsing the difference between good information and bad information, to his credit. Yeah, I'm kind of with him. I would like to see this become a thing. I think it's fun. I think it adds an element to the sport. Exactly what you said, Dane. It's entertainment. And if we get a bit of drama out of stuff like this, particularly if it's not hurting anybody, which it doesn't seem like it will, then I'm all for it.
I remember when I believe it was Benson who kind of dropped the news on Twitter about Teo in talks with Little Trek. And I texted Teo like just 1,000 exclamation points. And he was like, you can't believe everything you read. And look where we are now.
We've done a bit of it this year too. We're not immune to it, right? I think it's fun. I hope the audience out there likes when we start chatting transfer rumor stuff because a bit of speculation never hurt anybody. That is enough for today, though. Let's take a quick break.
There's another big transfer news that's come out in the past week, Caley. Have you heard it?
Oh, really?
It's do you want to guess?
I don't know.
So
I was trying to think of something creative and I failed.
Primož Roglic has transferred nearly all of the salads out of the salad bar at Bora Hansgrohe and left one nutritionally perfect salad to rule them all.
Was this like a game of Survivor? Like how did we end up with the final salad? Voted off the island each week?
I think so, yeah. Each one had to plead their case and complete a series of challenges and then divide into little groups to support each other. The quinoa on top of the iceberg lettuce. No, this story came out from, I can't remember where. Oh, it was L'Equipe, again. Another great story from them after the whole David Gaudu fishing story the week before. Basically, Primož Roglic went to team camp or whatever, walked into the lunchroom and saw all of the salads and was like, this isn't how it happened at Jumbo Visma. I get told exactly what salad I eat and how much of it I put in my mouth. I can't be deciding how many slices of tomato I want. Like, we need to figure this out. Just tell me how much salad I need to put in my mouth. And Ralph Denk and Rolf Aldag looked at him and were like, you're a genius. And so now there's much less choice at the lunch table for Roglic and his new teammates, which maybe they're not so happy about, but it's apparently going to make them better bike riders.
Every single one of his teammates are sitting at their tables going, fucking guy, man.
Yeah, that's not going to go over well. It's funny. This would not happen
quinoa
here. I think this is very emblematic of European sports, of like the approach that European sports teams take. Like you hear about Premier League clubs banning ketchup. Like of all the things they banned ketchup, what? There are so many worse things than ketchup. Or Villa, like they didn't have soda. What? I don't get it.
Did you see all the NFL guys getting off planes with their Chick-fil-A?
Yeah. This would never happen here. We have eat what you want, and over there it's like, no, you got this exact salad or this. I don't get it, man.
Did you hear about old Arsenal manager Arsene Wenger? When he first came into Arsenal, they'd previously been managed by someone else who permitted the squad to go and get blackout drunk on Tuesdays, and it was a name for it. It was something like, I think it's called the Tuesday Club or something, because he thought it was imperative that they do team bonding. So they were just allowed to just like carte blanche on Tuesday evening just to get absolutely wrecked. And then Arsene Wenger came in and was like, we're not going to do that anymore.
Maybe not.
They're not doing that in cycling. But yeah, Primoz Roglic, apparently he's had the L'Equipe article went on to detail how Roglic does things like instead of waiting 3 months to say something, he'll just say it straight away, which sounds great. And also how he's solved a lot of the hierarchical problems within the team, because before when it was like Jai Hindley, Utebrücker, who also must be gutted that everyone's now leaving Visma Lisa bike for Bora Hansgrohe, but we missed that part. And like Vlasov, like in the Vuelta when they were, Vlasov and Utebrücker were like, who's actually the leader? Now it's clear that Roglic is the leader, which just simplifies everything in the organisation, because it's like, I have my own personal ambitions, but there's also this guy who's so much better. So I am now playing second fiddle.
Speaking of Bora Hansgrohe leaders, last night at TDU, Sam Welsford won the bicycle race. Well done to Sam. Obviously, you can catch way more on that in our Escape Down Under episodes, but it's a little segue over to Danny Van Poppel being mean to Sam Bennett. What's going on? Why is Danny Van Poppel being mean to Sam Bennett?
Can we answer why? Why would anybody
be mean to Sam Bennett?
Yeah, we could tell you what happened, but we can't answer why. I mean, that's
He's
to me,
like a giant teddy bear. He's the sweetest guy ever.
I think it's frustrating to hear that anybody's being mean to him.
How has Danny Van Poppel been mean to Sam Bennett?
Sam Welsford won the first stage of the men's Tour Down Under for Bora Hansgrohe. And Danny Van Poppel said he was referring to the fact they'd done sprints last year with Sam Bennett, and that those, quote, turned out not really well. But with the new Sam, he's a powerhouse. And we knew if we can do the perfect lead out, he can hold the power. To me, it's like, what you can say this Sam Welsford guy is really good without so pointedly saying the old Sam was slow. It just seemed very aggressive. Why be mean to poor Sam Bennett? I don't get it. The new Sam, though, did take a win. He won that opening stage. It was really nice, but I feel like you can compliment Sam Welsford without, putting Sam Bennett down. Why
is Danny Van Poppel on his like Patrick Lefevre shit where it's like trashing Sam Bennett out the door, especially now that Sam Bennett rides for Decathlon Étoile Mondiale, where he's got a whole continent-wide series of stores filled with loads of objects like a big canoe that he could bring to a race and throw at Danny Van Poppel as part of a marketing activation.
Well, and not to mention the fact, like, Sam Welsford, love Sam Welsford, lovely chap. We chatted with him a bit at the Tour de France last year. Also, at the Tour de France last year, he only cracked the top 10 in the sprints once, and it was with 10th.
And he missed his time trial start.
What was it? And he missed his time trial start. It was stage 11 from Clermont-F, if those frequent listeners will remember Clermont-F, to Moulin. He finished 10th there. So it's not like Sam Welsford was setting the Tour de France alight last year, and all of a sudden Bora Hansgrohe has the best sprinter in the world. Sam Welsford won a sprint in Australia in January. Kudos to him. Great victory. Like I said, lovely, lovely chat. But I think Danny Van Poppel may be overselling this one slightly. I think that they may struggle, maybe not as much as with Sam Bennett, but I don't think that they're going to go win every single sprint through 2024.
The sprints are it's a dangerous place. I wouldn't want to go out of my way to piss someone off that is going to be in and around me going, 30 miles an hour at the end of every flat stage coming up. It just seems, I don't know. Danny Van Poppel's been around for a while, and I guess he is understandably frustrated if he was involved in a bunch of leadouts that didn't come to anything last year. I don't know. It's just not the classiest move to come out like that and just be so mean.
He's also teammates with one of Sam Bennett's best friends, Ryan Mullen, fellow Irishman. Yeah. Newly discovered Swiftie, Ryan Mullen. And you don't want that kind of rift inside of a team. Could be the last win we see if there's this kind of rift going on within the lead-out train.
I hope not, because Sam Welsford, it's not his fault that Danny Van Poppel's saying this, and we shouldn't take away from the fact that Sam Welsford's doing great.
It was a beautiful lead-out in the first stage of the Tour Down Under. It was fantastic. Danny Van Poppel did a very good job. But not the most impressive thing this week. That was Lucinda Brand winning nationals with a broken nose.
Yeah, so Lucinda Brand was racing Zonhoven on last Sunday, and fell and broke her nose, but it didn't stop her from racing the Dutch National Championships over the weekend, and she won with a broken nose, which is really crazy because I don't know if you've ever raced a bike race, especially a short bike race with a lot of power output and breathing involved. It would be quite hard to do that with a broken nose.
Can you imagine if a man did something like that at the Tour de France, Abby? How everyone would wax lyrical about him for weeks and months on end. And Lucinda Brand just did it, won, and got back to normal life.
Just kept going. Yeah. I mean, it's really, really impressive. I wonder what means for the rest of the season. I imagine that the Nationals is a different beast, although it is the Dutch Nationals. So obviously it's a little bit of basically the World Championships, just because there's so much talent in the Dutch field, especially in cyclocross. But it is something that you have to wonder if she's now going to take a little bit of time off before the World Championships to try to build up her health build up her nose before she has to race there. But yeah, I mean, I just think it's crazy, because I always think it's crazy when people race with broken bones. Like Annemiek van Vleuten Classic races with broken bones all the time. I guess those Dutch.
Yeah, I feel like there's an element of like, if she could do that with a broken nose, imagine what she could do if she could breathe right. And we already know Lucinda Brand's actually pretty darn good. So
yeah, I mean, she won over Puck Pieterse and Anne-Marie Worst, so two pretty incredible racers. And she's won a couple races this year, but it's not like she's been on the dominant form that she had been on in 21, I believe it was.
Are you guys familiar with the film Rookie of the Year?
No.
It's a children's sports film from the 90s in which a kid, I can't remember how it happens, he injures his arm in such a way that it gets bent really far back, and then suddenly he's able to throw a major league fastball, and he becomes a major league baseball player due to this freak accident. And I'm wondering, what if this is actually the moment where Lucinda Brand takes a step up and becomes
maybe she had a deviated septum, and this is actually just
fixed it.
It was a free nose job.
Maybe it could be.
I'm moving us on. We've got one more little news thing to get to today. It's actually, we're returning to something we talked about last week. This segment, which we previously called, was it Pluga Corner? We're stuck in Pluga Corner or something like that. We had a request on Discord to potentially call it Down the Plug Hole, which is gross, and possibly Circling the Plug Hole.
Yes.
Circling the Plug Hole. Is that not gross?
Yeah, because I think it's like
just
then
gross
it's like
enough.
circling the drain, which we kind of are a lot of the time when we keep on filling podcasts on the website with incremental Richard Plugger updates. I think it's self-referential in a knowing way.
All right, so we'll go with that. We're going with Circling the Plug Hole.
Just because you said you're not going to call it that doesn't mean you chose to reference that phrase that we all decided was too far. You chose to bring that up, and I don't know.
You got to give your props
It's
to
not
the
like it was
Discord
our
members.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a Discord member. So that is what is kicking off this segment. A comment from Eric H on Discord. Pluga buying Kian and trying to buy Krohn is just practice for him. Ultimate goal is to buy ASO with Saudi money. He's basically Danny DeVito and other people's money. Sorry for the old people reference. It's okay, Eric.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Thoughts on this? Is Richard Pluga his playing with the transfers? Is this just practice for his negotiation to buy Emery Sport Organization with Saudi money? Again, this is the one pro or one cycling thing that we were talking about before. Not one pro, one cycling.
I think there's no way the French would, either the Emery family or the French government would allow the company to be bought by Saudi Arabia. I think like the allowing, because PSG are now owned by the Qataris, right? I think so. That's one thing. Yep. But having a foreign owner of a football club's kind of par for the course, and there can be another owner someday. But putting the Tour de France in their, in the Saudis' ownership is probably too risky for Macron and the new very young prime minister, who's like our age.
I would tend to agree with you, and part of the reason I agree with you is that those who were following the sport, what year would have this been? Like 2015 or so? There was all sorts of chatter around Wanda, the giant Chinese conglomerate, trying to come in and buy ASO in particular, and buy all sorts of races in cycling, and that interest waned for a number of sort of geopolitical reasons, primarily. But that was apparently just sort of turned down immediately, right? Like ASO didn't even entertain that discussion, and Wanda came in with sort of a similarly astronomical financial weight behind it. I don't think this is going to happen. I think it's a fun question, Eric, and I think it's it's just a funny thing to think about that Richard Pluga will be practicing his negotiation skills with Ralph Denk in preparation for buying ASO. I think that's just funny, but I don't think ASO is for sale. I think that as cycling fans, we kind of just have to accept that this is the family that's going to basically be the most powerful entity in cycling by a long, long way for a long time.
Also, like the higher ups in ASO get to spend every July flying helicopters wherever they want across their country, driving on the roads, closed roads, just being like the most popular and important people in the whole country, which maybe that's a money can't buy thing usually. I wouldn't give that up if I was a ASO bigwig. I'd be like, the life I've got is sweet. Don't need like all the more money. I've got loads already.
Thanks, Eric, for the comment on Discord. Of course, if you're an Escape Collective member, you can join us in that Discord chat. It's super fun. In fact, we're kicking off this sort of live chat around the races because the race season is back. And that's one of the most active channels throughout the year. So jump on over to escapecollective.com/join. All right, Abby. Women's Tour Down Under wrapped up over the weekend. Sarah Gigante was, dominant, I think is the only word you could possibly use, on Wollonga Hill. What else? What are the other storylines to come out of the first Women's World Tour race of the season?
It was such an awesome race. I mean, we had 3 really good stages, obviously won by 3 different people, and I feel like every stage had different talking points coming out of it. The first stage and the last stage were both won by AG Insurance Soudal, which is a new team to the World Tour this year. They applied for World Tour status last year, the first year that the team was an elite team instead of a development team, and they were denied their status. But this year they were granted the World Tour status, and they came out swinging. And it was really impressive to watch the team the whole way through the race, just how well they all rode together, especially given that it was a relatively young team they had at the race. But Ali Wilson was super impressive on stage 1, beating a pretty stacked Livalula Jayco team. And Matt and Gracie did an amazing job covering that stage, led by Dave Rome on the Wheel Talk /Placeholders /Escape podcast Down Under. Escape Down Under is officially what we're calling them. But they
did an amazing job, actually.
Oh, they were great. I mean, I loved Rome leading the podcast. I was editing it, just laughing out loud to myself, listening to Dave talk about bike racing. He knows a lot more than he's given credit for. I feel like a lot of the talking points coming out of the race happened in the final 2 stages. The second stage was won by Cecilia Tripp-Ludwig, who, if you'll remember, she had kind of a hard start to last season, but she came into the end of the season and was really impressive with a second place at the World Championships and multiple wins at the Tour of Scandinavia. Barely missed out on winning the overall there for a second time in a row. But it was cool to see her come to this race so strong, because oftentimes what you have happening is the Australian riders are on the ground already going well because they have the national championships a week before. And even if Europeans do come down, which I think this year we had the most international peloton that the race has ever seen, usually they come down and they're not quite fit yet, and it's still kind of a battle of the Aussies. Last year in the race's first year in the World Tour calendar, it was still Grace Brown versus Amanda Spratt. It was still an Aussie race, basically. But the stage that Cecilia Tripp-Ludwig won, you have like 3 Italians right behind her, between Soraya Paladin from Canyon SRAM, which usually a domestique, awesome to see her get her shot at a victory, Sofia Bertozzola for UAE, and Francesca Barali for DSM Firmenich Post NL. So it was really cool to see kind of the growing internationality of the race, a race that is incredibly fun and awesome start to the season. And so it's awesome to see more teams taking it seriously and sending riders who, want to make an impact on the race, not just for kind of fitness goals.
The big one for me out of Wollonga, well, we should explain for anybody who did miss it. So basically, Sarah Gigante, who's on AG Insurance, this young new World Tour team, and she's a very young rider who's had kind of a rough couple years. But she's 23, right? And was dealing with a virus and crashes and a whole bunch of other stuff over the last couple years. So she just hits the bottom of Wollonga, and she's got hitters behind her, right? She's got Cecily behind her. Ruth Edwards was up there? Bunch of hitters. And she just rode everybody off of her wheel up a climb that is, Wollonga's hard, but it's no Alpe d'Huez, right? So massively, massively impressive ride. The sort of chat on our Slack afterward was, what does that mean for the rest of the season? Is this somebody who, her positioning coming into that hill was frankly not good. She got caught out in the crosswind. She kept trying to follow her team around. Team did their best to take care of her, but really like she needs to spend a lot more time in a peloton. That's pretty clear. But if she could figure that out, where's the limit for her? Where's the upper limit?
I feel like with Wollonga, it's a good hill for just showing off raw power, and you can't leave everybody behind like that without the watts per kilo that she showed, and that's not something that you can just practice and train. You know, that power get a little bit better, sure, but clearly she's already in great shape, and the positioning, the racecraft, that sort of stuff is something that you can get better at. I mean, we've seen many riders over the years get better at that sort of thing. The fact that she's already doing this with, like you said, some hitters behind her. I mean, yeah, this is January. It's always a little tricky to compare Tour Down Under results with the rest of the year because of the time of year and the fact that some of the European riders might not be in the best shape. But if you're going to do it anywhere, I mean, Wollonga Hill's the place to try to make those comparisons, because if you look back in history, that's where the big riders showed up, because it's just a climb you can't. It's not like she got into some long distance breakaway and just happened to hold on. I mean, she was there with everyone else. Everybody knew that's where this thing is going to be decided. She went, dropped everybody. I feel like she can only get better even in terms of the positioning and everything else.
Yeah, the thing about Gigante is she's had a contract with Movistar for the last 2 years, but she has barely raced. I mean, she's done 5 races a year or less with them while she was racing for them. And so not only is she still pretty new and was still pretty new when she signed for Movistar, she hasn't learned really anything with them in the 2 years that she was on the team with them. In that time, she still won a one-day 1.1 in Spain, the Macamín Nafarroco. But in most of the other races, she struggled. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that the team just wasn't willing to develop her as a rider. The only European race that they sent her to in all of 2023 was Tour of Scandinavia. So you would hope that signing for a team like AG Insurance Soudal would mean that team, since they have focused on young riders in the past, and there's still a lot of young riders on the team, that they would be interested in developing Gigante further to make her into a rider who can compete in Europe. I'm not going to lie, she had a really hard time getting to the bottom of Wollonga, and she wasted a lot more energy than riders that she dropped on that climb. When it comes to racing against Demi Vollering in Europe, she's going to need that energy if she wants to compete against the best climbers in Europe. But she has the potential, 100%. And I think it would be incredible to see her go up against Vollering on a big climb, because that's exactly what we need. We need climbers that can beat Vollering on a climb. I'm not about to go into the 2024 season and have it be as soon as there's a climb, there's only one rider that can contend, because no one wants that. So for anyone watching Gigante go up this climb, it's incredibly exciting going into the rest of the year thinking, okay, we have a climber who can maybe come up against Vollering and at least make her sweat a little bit or make her nervous. But watching her go up Wollonga, I was having flashbacks to Mara Abbott, which is a rider that I think that Gigante could, I don't want to compare people, I guess, but she has a lot of Mara Abbott in her, in that she's kind of singularly focused on climbing. And that's not really something that you can get away with in the European peloton. You need to become a better all-rounder. Not saying that Gigante isn't good at other things, because she won Australian Nationals and she's an incredible time trialist. So she has other skills, but it's just going to take a lot from the people around her team around her, to make sure that she can adapt to the racing in Europe. And if she can, she's going to be incredible. There's no doubt. It's kind of a long road ahead for her. No pun intended. She is incredibly talented. She's an exciting rider to kind of think about what she could do to the peloton in the future.
If she can get to the bottom of the hill, that's basically the question, right? Think about the Muir. That's a pretty good opportunity, but you got to get there first. Or, I think it's the penultimate stage, or is it the final stage of the Tour de France Femme this year that finishes atop Alpe d'Huez? If you can get to the bottom of Alpe d'Huez, she's got a pretty good shot, but got to get there first. So she'll be an interesting one to watch, and I think she's on a better team now for figuring that stuff out. She was really well supported by those other teammates, and she's got classic star Service Canavan as one of her directors, and there's people around her that can teach her that very specific skill, which is teachable, right? Like you said, Dane, increasing the watts per kilo is a pretty tricky thing, but learning how to corner and work in a pack is something that people can learn.
One of the things that's going to be the most interesting with her going to Europe is watching what the dynamic is like with her and Ashley Moolman-Pasio, because Ashley Moolman-Pasio is a very similar rider in that she's a really strong climber and she really focuses on those climbing races. but neither of them will be able to work well with each other. It will be hard for them to figure out how to work together to beat someone like Demi. That's something that we should keep an eye on this season, is how the two are going to be able to team up. Matt and Gracie did an incredible job with the second episode from TDU. So if you haven't listened to it, go check it out, because they dove into a ton of stuff from the stages 2 and 3. They talked about Ninka Vinka, who is the best named rider in the peloton at only 19, and a ton of other stuff. So definitely check out that TDU podcast. That's also the Wheel Talk podcast for the week.
Head on over, give it a listen. All right, let's take a quick break. Welcome back, everybody. It's time for this week's Weekly Pain. And then we're going to get into Escape After Dark after this, if you are lucky enough to be a member. This week's Weekly Pain, we're using basically the same rules of engagement as last time, where you guys named almost every rider on the Little Trek team. This week, we're doing Jayco Alula / Live Alula Jayco.
I feel like I came to the wrong week.
So you kind of Abby. So you're gonna go around, game of categories. If you get one wrong, you're out. If all three of you get one wrong, you're all back in. I need one rider on either basically the men's or women's Jayco team, and we'll start with Abby.
Ruby Roseman Gannett.
Correct. Johnny.
Caleb Ewan.
You got it. Dane.
Dylan Grunewagen.
Yep. Double sprinter action over at Jayco right now. Abby.
Luke Plapp.
Correct. This is going to be a while. Johnny.
Adam Yates. No,
It won't be.
no, the wrong one. Oh,
Oh, Johnny, you're out.
I had some good ones as well.
Well, maybe they'll get some wrong and then you'll be back in. Dane.
I don't have a lot. I have like one or two others, first of all. And also, with Johnny out, that gives me less time to think in between turns. That's not good. Michael Matthews.
Pick it up.
Yep. Michael Matthews is correct.
Lawson Craddock.
Yep. Dane.
I can't think of anybody else who races for Jayco.
What do
Who
you
else
mean?
races for Jayco?
I gave you the ultimate clue. I think that
Simon
beanie hat's
Yates.
on too tight.
That's what it is.
Simon
And the
Yates
cans
is correct.
as well.
Is correct. Abby.
It's not going to matter. I still don't know
Danielle
the next
Campbell.
one. Yeah.
Yep.
Nice.
That's a
Dane.
good one.
Oh, man.
How many do you guys think Matt would get by himself?
All of them.
Yeah,
All of them.
Yeah.
All right, Dane.
Yeah.
3,
Oh,
2, 1.
Abby, who's
Think of the
Grace Brown
women's
race
team.
for?
DJ Suez.
is Erska Ziggert
Abby.
still there?
Wait.
Of
Yes.
course.
Abby hasn't won
Abby's
yet.
going to get
Oh,
like 18
sorry,
more.
sorry.
There's no worries.
Abby's got to
sorry.
get one. Abby's got to get one.
She'll get them.
Give me
Amber Pate.
give me a name. Yes.
She just went
Well done. Abby is the champion.
crushed us
That
there.
was, that was rough. That was a rough go for Johnny. I felt bad for you there. That was just-
I was naming men purely to take them off the table because I knew
I think
that
that's-
none
no,
of
you
wouldn't
played
know
smart.
any of the women.
You played it smart.
I was so
that is
focused on
strategery.
holding back my silver bullet of an answer, which is Blake Quick, one of the best names in the peloton.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
23-year-old Blake Quick.
and there's
Uh,
another guy with a really small mullet who I met in China. I can't remember his name though. It's not Hamish. I think that's just. I imagine most young Australians are called Hamish.
Also, I think this is a really great illustration
Rudy.
of like what this game does to the people playing it. Because I think if we were not in a situation, like if we were not on the spot, we'd be able to come up with way more. But it's
Mhm.
like as soon as you get on the spot, I'm like, oh, I have no idea who rides for this team.
Well, I wouldn't have said
I-
Adam Yates.
what-
Yeah, that sucks.
Well, so the two current co-leaders right now are Kit and Abby, both
Kit and
with
Abby.
3 points.
Please don't
and
ever
of
pit me
course,
up against Kit ever.
Kit's
Dane,
good.
Johnny, Ian, Ronan, and Cosmo all have 0. So well done, Abby. All right, that's where we cut this thing off. If you are not an Escape member, we're going to go drop into a bit of Escape After Dark on the members feed only. Make sure that you head over to escapecollective.com/join and sign up. Add that members feed to your pod app of choice. It's really quick and easy. You only have to do it once, and then you can get Escape After Dark if you're not coming with us to Escape After Dark, thanks for listening this week. We'll be back next week with another Placeholder podcast. Make sure you check out all the Tore Down Under episodes that are showing up in your feed this week. Escape Down Under is the sort of temporary name we've got for those. Again, we've got tech from the ground, we've got racing from the ground, all sorts of good stuff. Rupert Guinness, which is very exciting. Love having Root back on the pod. Make sure you check those out this week, and we'll see you next week. Bye.